The coffee mug slipped from Harold's hand and cracked against the kitchen tile. Steam curled upward as the smell of bitter roast filled the silence. Across the counter, his daughter Emily leaned on one elbow, scrolling through her phone, her voice careless as she said, "Dad, I just need 12,000. It's a trip with Mark. Just a week. We deserve it after everything." Her mother, Diane, kept her eyes on the window. The morning light fell across her face like a soft, exhausted sigh. "You already got help for the apartment last month," she murmured. Emily rolled her eyes. "This is different. Mark promised we'd make memories. Besides, it's not like you can't afford it. What's the point of saving if your own daughter feels trapped in this dead-end life?" Harold felt something tighten in his chest. Not anger, but the dull pinch of disappointment. He thought of the overtime shifts, the careful investments, the way he'd quietly paid off Emily's college loans so she'd start life clean. He wanted to say no. He wanted to ask why Mark wasn't paying for his own promises. Instead, he wiped the spilled coffee with a dish towel, watching the brown stain spread. Diane turned finally, her hands clasped tight. 12,000 is a lot, Emily. That's your father's retirement cushion." Emily's voice softened, but the edge was sharper than ever. "So, I guess my happiness isn't worth it to you?" The air felt heavier than the broken mug. Harold swallowed the words he wanted to say, and with a slow nod, he muttered, "I'll transfer it tomorrow." Emily's eyes lit up briefly, and then she was gone. Door slamming, perfume trailing in the air. Diane stood still, staring at the empty doorway, her voice barely above a whisper. "One day, Harold, she's going to leave us with nothing but this silence." The transfer went through the next morning. Harold stared at the confirmation email like it was a confession. $12,000, gone in seconds. He sat at the kitchen table, the old wood sticky from years of family dinners, while Diane poured cereal into 2 bowls and said nothing. By lunchtime, Emily called. Her voice was light, breathless with excitement. "We're boarding the plane now. Mark booked us a suite with an ocean view. Don't worry, I'll send pictures." Harold forced a smile she couldn't see. "Enjoy yourself, sweetheart." He ended the call and left the phone face down on the table. That evening, Diane finally broke the quiet. "You should have told her no." Her tone wasn't cruel, just weary, the kind that comes from knowing the same wound will be opened again and again. "What was I supposed to do?" Harold asked, rubbing his temples. "She sounded like she'd never forgive us if we didn't help." Diane's eyes glistened in the dim kitchen light. Maybe that's what she wants, to make us afraid to lose her. The next few days were a series of cheerful texts from Emily, pictures of white sand beaches, sunsets bleeding into turquoise water, champagne glasses raised to a camera. Each caption carried a sweetness that cut Harold like a blade. "Love you guys. Wish you were here." Then, on the 5th night, Diane found him on the back porch, staring at the dark yard. "We're teaching her that love is a transaction," she said quietly, resting a hand on his shoulder. "And one day, we won't have anything left to give." Harold didn't answer. He thought of the years he spent patching roofs, mowing lawns, cooking Sunday pancakes just to hear his daughter laugh. Somewhere between the chirping crickets and the silence of their house, he realized he was waiting for the phone to ring, not with love, but with the next demand. The call came 2 nights later, not with joy, but with a tremor Harold felt in his bones. It was close to midnight, and the house was dark except for the soft blue light from the television. Dad, Emily's voice cracked, thin and uneven. He left me. Harold sat upright. What do you mean? I woke up and he was gone. No note, no wallet. He took everything we bought together. My cards are maxed out. I can't even pay the hotel. Her voice splintered into small, choked sobs. Diane stirred in the bedroom doorway, robe clutched tight, eyes sharp with worry. She whispered, "What is it?" Harold covered the receiver and mouthed, "Mark left her." The hotel manager's voice replaced Emily's on the line a moment later, firm but polite. "Sir, your daughter is safe, but the balance of $12,000 must be settled immediately, or local authorities will be involved." A cold wave passed through Harold's chest. He thought of the money already gone, the trust already bent. I need a moment," he said, but the man only repeated the amount. By morning, an email arrived, scanned copies of receipts Emily had signed for jewelry, boat excursions, dinners draped in candlelight. At the bottom, a line in bold red letters, "Outstanding balance due." Diane sat across from him, her hands trembling over a mug of untouched tea. He used her, and she let him. Harold opened the next message, and his stomach turned. It wasn't from Emily. It was from their bank's fraud department, flagging a second transfer request for $5,000 more, submitted from an unfamiliar device. He leaned back in his chair, the soft creak of the wood echoing in the quiet kitchen. For the first time in his life, Harold felt it clearly. His daughter had crossed a line. The sun had barely risen when Harold found himself in the attic, drawn there by a weight he couldn't shake. Dust floated in the golden light as he opened an old cedar chest. Inside were decades of life packed into neat layers. Emily's kindergarten drawings, a seashell she'd handed him on their first family beach trip, a photograph of her at 16 holding the puppy he'd surprised her with after a grueling overtime month. He traced a finger over the photograph, his thumb brushing her smiling face. Back then, she'd hugged him like he was her whole world. He could still feel the warmth of her small arms clinging to his neck, the squeal in her voice when she'd whispered, "Thank you, Daddy." A soft creak came from behind him. Diane stood in the doorway, her eyes glossy, her voice tender. "I remember that day," she said, nodding toward the photo. "You worked 3 doubles to buy her that puppy. You never told her how hard it was." Harold swallowed the lump in his throat. "I thought if I gave her everything, she'd always feel safe, always love us." Diane crossed the room, kneeling beside him. She took the photo and held it against her chest like a fragile relic. "Love doesn't grow from what we give, Harold. It grows from what they carry inside. And I think she doesn't know how to carry us anymore." The silence settled between them, heavy and clear. Harold set the picture down carefully and closed the chest. For the first time, he felt a strange calm bloom in his chest, like the hush after a storm. "I have to stop saving her," he said finally, his voice steady. "If I keep rescuing her, she'll drown us both." Diane leaned her head against his shoulder, and in the stillness of the attic, he felt the first quiet flicker of resolve. 2 days later, Harold sat at the oak desk in his small study, the morning light spilling across a blank sheet of paper. The house was quiet, except for the slow tick of the wall clock. He had drafted the letter 3 times already, each version softer than the last, but this one had to be final. "Emily," he wrote, his pen steady, "we love you, but we can't be your safety net anymore. This is the last time we will cover your choices. If you need help, it must come from your own strength, not our savings. Please understand, we are protecting what's left of ourselves." He folded the letter carefully, slipping it into an envelope addressed to her hotel. Then he opened the second envelope, this one for the lawyer. The inheritance would be locked. No early access. No sudden transfers. For the first time in months, Harold felt his heart loosen, as if someone had untied a knot. Diane appeared in the doorway, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. He nodded, sliding the documents into a small stack. "I'm sure. She needs to stand on her own feet, and we need to live the rest of our lives without fear." That afternoon, he and Diane sat together on the porch, coffee cooling in their hands. The phone buzzed on the table. Another call from Emily. Harold let it ring until it went silent. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It felt like protection. A breeze swept through the yard, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass. Harold closed his eyes, leaning back in the old wooden chair, and felt the quiet triumph of a man who had finally chosen peace over guilt. Somewhere far away, his daughter would read the letter, and for the first time, she would know that love had a boundary.